For that. We are now recording. All right, so go over what qualitative scoring is and how to submit an application, the review of the schedule, and then Laura's going to take over and discuss project priority procedure, our new procedure that we've been developing, and the funding source direction in regards to that. So real quick, let's do some introductions just because I know we've had some turnover over the last year over on the Transportation Subcommittee. And so I am going to bring up my sign-in sheet and we'll go through that way on doing introductions. So if you can just say your name, who you're with, and your title. So Abby Morgan.
Hey, this is Bryant with the City of Cocoa as well. Abby's computer doesn't have a microphone.
Oh, okay.
But Abby is our assistant city engineer for the City of Cocoa.
And Bryant, you want to introduce yourself while you're unmuted?
Sure. Sorry to get out of order. My name is Bryant Smith. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Cocoa and City Engineer.
All right, Anna Taylor.
Good morning, Anna Taylor, DOT in the Planning Office.
Bob Musser.
Good morning, Bob Musser. I'm the Senior Director of Environmental with the Canaveral Port Authority.
Brenda with Cape Canaveral. We'll come back to Brenda. Cliff.
Good morning, Cliff Graham. I'm the Director of Operations and Maintenance for the Orlando Melbourne International Airport. Also the Vice Chair of the TAC.
Karina.
Good morning, Karina Gum with Boulevard County Traffic Operations, and I'm the Program Manager.
Courtney Barker.
Good morning, this is Courtney Barker, City Manager for the City of Satellite Beach.
David Wilkeson.
Hey, good morning. It's David Wilkeson. I'm the City Engineer of the City of Melbourne. I've got Jenny Lamb, our Deputy City Manager, here with me, and Todd Corwin, our Senior Planner as well.
Devin.
Good morning. Devin Swanson, Boulevard County Traffic Operations.
Georgiana.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Georgiana Gillette, Director of the Space Coast TPO.
Jared.
I'm Jared Francis. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Cocoa Beach.
Jason. I thought I saw him. Karen Black.
Good morning. I'm Karen Black with Boulevard Public Schools, Manager of Facilities Planning.
Laura.
Good morning. I'm Laura Carter, Assistant Director with the Space Coast TPO.
Liz.
Hi, good morning. I'm Liz Allward, Assistant City Manager, Satellite Beach.
Rakinya. Stephen.
Good morning, everyone. Stephen Bostel, Transportation Program Manager for the TPO.
Terry.
Good morning, everyone. Terry Jordan, Space Coast Area Transit Planner.
And Todd, we got introduced to KB. All right, am I missing anybody?
Mark Ryan, Indian Harbor Beach.
Welcome, Mark.
Hey, Sarah, it's Rakinya. I think I was on mute. I was speaking, but I don't know if I was off of mute or not. Thanks.
All right, welcome, Rakinya.
Thank you.
Hey, Sarah, it's Abby Johnson. I'm at the top of your list with St. John's River Water Management District. I'm the intergovernmental. Hi. I'm the intergovernmental coordinator, for those who don't know.
Sarah Chelsea, GIS Analyst, Space Coast TPO.
All right. Thank you and welcome everybody. So I'm now going to turn over to Georgiana to discuss the funding and programming status.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. It's really great to see everyone's faces, and I'm looking forward to our February committee and board meetings, and hoping that things will start to finally get back to normal. So it's really good to see you, and thank you for being here. Just want to do a really quick review of any changes to the work program, specifically related to our priority projects, anything that got funded, or if we had any impacts, any deferrals or projects that were moved out of the work program due to the funding shortfalls that the department has been suffering. Also, as a reminder, the DOT did hold their week-long work program public hearing last week. Any public comments that you want to make on specific projects, whether there was lack of funding on a project, or if you'd like to, say thank you to the department for funding, those comments are due by January the 29th, and you can make them online at www.d5wpph.com. So I just want to give that reminder to everyone. Next slide. So the first project I wanted to just mention is the Cape Canaveral Spaceport Indian River Bridge Replacement and Space Commerce Way Connector. If you remember, this project is number 2, 3, and 4. There's different components of the project. Space Florida did receive a infrastructure grant. So that was really good news. And the reason I wanted to put the slide in the PowerPoint is that it is finally showing up. The funding is showing up in the DOT work program, which is really good. I know that Space Florida has been working very hard on the term sheet. And of course, the infrastructure grant does require a 20% match. So all of that had to be worked out. And if you remember, the TPO did fund the design ITS component of this, which was a separate component. And we used some of our SU funding to do it. And so this just solidifies it. It is now officially in the DOT work program, fully funded. And so when we do adopt our new priority list, these projects should be able to come off the priority list 2 through 4 and go to the fully funded list. So this is some good news. Next slide. This is the US 1 corridor safety study. This is phase 1, and I know that we talked a lot about this the last time. It is on a state road. It's from W.H. Jackson Street to Crane Creek. The city of Melbourne completed the design on their own. And by the way, this was the result really of the Space Coast TPO road safety audit that we did along with DOT and Melbourne. So there were some really good projects, safety projects that came out of that study. And the department, there was some back and forth as to why the project wasn't funded, with the TPO's SU funding. But in the end, the construction funding is showing up in the work program for fiscal year 25, 1.7 million. And the city of Melbourne is willing to come to the table with 600,000 in local funds. So there is definitely a funding partnership. And for the Melbourne folks looking in the work program, it is programmed as a LAP project. I had questioned as to why it would be LAP, but I just wanted to make sure you are aware that it is reflected as a LAP project in the DOT work program. Next slide. So the next project is the NASA Boulevard Sidewalk project from Gateway Drive to Eddie Allen Road. The design funding had already been programmed for fiscal year 21. It is a LAP project. The city of Melbourne is handling that design. And the new funding is construction in fiscal year 24. 673,000 of SU and TALU, which is the funding that the TPO has authority over. And so, of course, we want to see, this is an important project and we do want to see it move forward. So that is good news. And of course, it will also be a LAP project that the City of Melbourne will have to construct. Next slide. So this is a state road project, A1A from south of the International Drive, North Atlantic Avenue intersection, that realignment, and then a sidewalk to Long Point Road. The design has been underway by FDOT for a while now. I know it was put on hold to kind of understand, what the desires were for the community. And then, of course, we had COVID-19 happened. But the right-of-way now is reflected in the work program, fully funded. We originally programmed a couple of years of our SU. Now it is fully funded, and the construction is programmed in fiscal year 26, 7.4 million total. And that is with state funding, DDR, that's district dedicated revenue state funding. And it's showing 2 million in local funding. I've not had an opportunity to really talk to the department to find out what that means. I'm assuming it could be a right-of-way donation because I know that there was some right-of-way that was needed. But just want to let you know that is how it is reflected in the DOT work program, and we'll certainly get more information about that. Next slide. Also for the City of Cocoa, there were a couple of projects funded. Aurora Street, this project was a sidewalk project, and there's also going to be some drainage improvements. The city was going to accomplish the design phase. Actually, the design phase is programmed in fiscal year 23 for $50,000, and that is local funding. So that would be a project that the COCO would do on their own. There's no federal money on it. And then construction is programmed in fiscal year 25 for $555,000 with federal money, the TPO's SU funding. So, I know that this was an important project for the City of Cocoa, and so it did get funded. There was some back and forth about that, but clearly it did get funded. And then the next slide is Michigan Avenue, from Clear Lake Road to US 1. And this is a bike path, a trail, and it's also the East Coast Greenway link. Design funding is in fiscal year 24 for $85,000, and then construction is in fiscal year 26 for $974,000. And I see that we didn't put the actual type of fund code, but if you remember the new LAP procedure that the DOT came out with last year, or maybe it was the year before last, they had a $250,000 threshold. So no projects could be funded with federal funding if it was below $250,000. But this project kind of was under the radar. It does not, I don't believe it would fully go into effect until next year or maybe this programming cycle. But both of these projects are LAP projects now, so the City of Cocoa will have to work with the department to get LAP certified and accomplish these projects. And then the last slide, excuse me, I wanted to mention just a couple of impacts that we did have to the work program and kind of mention some things that didn't get funded. It is my understanding there have been some of the other MPOs were hit a little harder than we were for sure. But one project is the Space Coast Trail, and this is from the park there to the Playa Linda parking lot. We had construction fully funded in fiscal year 22 for $7.4 million, and that has been deleted out of the work program due to lack of funding for Sun Trail funding. So I know that the department is going there to do their very best to try and get that put in, but that's a pretty big hit for us. Also, State Road 528, this is the widening from east of State Road 3 to the Port Canaveral interchange. Construction has been deferred from fiscal year 31 to 32, And this is just to balance the SIS allocations. Now, this is outside the 5-year work program, and I wasn't really going to put that in because this is so far out. This impact is really, we're not going to feel it at this time. But I do want to point out what is missing is that we did not get any new funding for the design update in current year. If you remember, we needed $2.5 million in additional design funding to extend the bridge 4,500 feet, which would allow the opportunity for causeway removal in the future. So the design really, the additional design funding was not able to be programmed this year. Hopefully, or excuse me, this past work program cycle. Hopefully that can happen this year because that funding is coming from FDOT's central office, not out of the district. So this is something that we definitely want to pursue and make sure that the design gets completed so we don't have any deferrals of the right-of-way phase in the future. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, our number one priority, the widening of Ellis. We were very hopeful, and I know I've had conversations with DOT that could possibly get funded for construction in fiscal year 26 this year, but it did not. And so that is disappointing. And so what I've been asked to do is to put together a stakeholder meeting with the airport, the county, Melbourne and West Melbourne, and we all want to get together in February, discuss the project, kind of review where it's at, where the county is with the design phase, and how much we're short exactly, so we can come up with some other strategies. It's just unfortunate that we have to go another year that this project did not get funded for construction. So looking in the work program, this is all I see. So I'll certainly, if it's okay, Sarah, open it up to any questions to see if anyone has any comments or concerns about what I've talked about.
Laura, are you seeing anything in the chat box or any hands raised?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Anybody? Guess not.
And of course, if you think of something later, you can always email or call us. All right, we're going to go into the call for projects, directions, and information. So where does project priorities fit in our planning process? So I wanted to kind of just briefly go over where it fits, and then also mention kind of what Georgiana just discussed kind of fits within this as well. So we start off with our long-range transfer.
Excuse me, Sarah, just real quick. KB did ask a question in the chat. What are the prospects for the Space Coast Trail funding coming back? That's related to the Sun Trails that Georgiana just mentioned.
I'm not sure that I can specifically say what the prospects are. We had our coordination or our monthly design coordination meeting yesterday, and both the FDOT project manager for the design as well as for the PD&E said they're really working hard to try to push the priority of the Space Coast Trail. It is the #1 Sun Trail project in our area through our regional priority list with the Central Florida NPO Alliance. So it's definitely a priority, and we're just going to have to wait and see. I haven't had the opportunity, but I did want to reach out to Robin at up at Central Office. She's the Central Office Sun Trail coordinator, and kind of have a conversation with her as well. Now, it was not funded with Sun Trail's money. It was DDR, District Dedicated Revenue. So it would be changing funding sources to go to Sun Trails. But it's probably our best bet in getting it funded.
And I would, Sarah, I would just also add that, this is, an opportunity that you can make a comment, that this is how important this project is. they had to make some cuts, but it's still important that you comment on anything that you see that is important, that you would encourage them to try and find funding as quickly as they can to replace that money.
Absolutely. And KB, I know that Edie had previously sent a letter during the work program cycles, work program public comments. So perhaps Titusville already has something.
We all need to get through it every year, but they seem to be exhausting.
Yeah, they do lately. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Is some? I think someone has themselves unmuted that doesn't want themselves unmuted. All right, so where's the project priorities fit in our planning process? And so we start with our long-range transportation plan. As I think most of you know, we just recently adopted that. And that really feeds into our list of project priorities. And then eventually those project priorities end up in our TIP, which is where all of those projects that Georgiana was just discussing will end up this coming year. So it really shows what Georgiana just spoke about, really shows kind of the value of the list of project priorities and how it can take these planned projects in the LRTP and actually make them into reality. So the process overview for what we're going through now, which is the development of our list of project priorities, is kind of twofold. So we start off with the Space Coast CPO. We do our call for projects, which we just issued about a week and a half ago. Then we go through application submission. That's where you guys come in, where you can submit your applications. Laura and I then take those and using our project prioritization methodology, evaluate the applications and rank them. Then we go through that process with you guys as well. And eventually we end up at our board where we adopt our list of project priorities. We then submit that to FDOT. FDOT then reviews their applications and they go through a vetting process and they meet with locals and they really analyze the projects. And then we go into project programming where we work together with FDOT to program the projects, work program development, and eventually ends up being a LAP project or FDOT implements the project. So any questions at this point before I go into the methodology? All right, so as you recall for those that joined us last year we developed a very robust new project priorities methodology that basically the purpose was to create to be able to take a bunch of different types of projects and put them all in one list. And so it was basically the idea behind it was that you could, in theory, rank a sidewalk project against an intersection project against an ITS project and end up with one list per the request of FDOT. So how we get to our final ranking is through a quantitative score based on the criteria that we developed last year. A qualitative score based upon a consensus recommendation of the Transportation Subcommittee. So that's really where you have, the power to help direct the ranking. Discretionary ranking, where basically either our TAC, CAC, or our governing board can choose to move a project in ranking based on a consensus recommendation and the governing board having the ultimate approval. So the first thing that we do when going through our ranking and evaluation process is we have to make sure our project is eligible. So there are a couple things that basically we have to check, because if they don't qualify for these various items, then they aren't eligible for federal funding. So, are they in the LRTP? The cost feasible component of the LRTP. This does include projects that are listed in our Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan, our ITS Master Plan, as well as also our long-range transportation plan? Is it on the functional aid system? Is it going to be implemented within the next 5 years? We have a huge list of project priorities, and we really want to make sure that the projects that are on there are ready to go and not just sitting there as a placeholder. Is the project consistent with local government comprehensive plans? Does it have local support? So in order to kind of qualify those, we're looking for either part of the comprehensive plan or something from your council or committees to basically verify that it does have the local support. Has the public been informed or engaged? That's kind of more of an informational thing. You don't have to have had discussions with the public. It's better, as we all know, that, we can get far along and then the public can come in and say, well, what's going on? And then if the project is off the state highway system, is the agency certified to perform LAP? And if you are not certified to perform LAP or cannot be certified to perform a LAP project, then what we're looking for is an MOA or something with a municipality that will be administering the project for you. So for example, if I can't do LAP, but Georgiana can, then I could have Georgiana administer the project and me and Georgiana have an agreement if Georgiana and I were cities, basically. All right, summary of screening criteria. So this goes back to the quantitative scores. And so, all right, the project is eligible. We are now going to take it through the screening criteria. And what we're looking for is points based on safety. So really targeting those high crash corridors or high speed corridors. Does the project help link transportation and land use by improving access to community resources, economic drivers, parks, schools, all sorts of basically community assets? Does the project help make our transportation system more sustainable or resilient, either improving stormwater or water quality, or we're really hoping to move into the direction where projects are starting to consider things like sea level rise impacts and such. Is the project innovative? And so does it improve travel time reliability, or does it use a unique solution? And is the project multimodal? So are you addressing bicycle, pedestrian, or transit needs through that project? We go basically the way that we see the you actually get to fill out the project application and let us know, yes, my project does include pedestrian facilities, etc. And you do this through our project priority application, which you can see right here. And we also provide you the project application form resource packet that basically has everything that you need to answer all of those questions. And so, if you are submitting an application, I really would encourage you to get comfortable with the project application resource packet, as well as also if you have any questions, you can, of course, contact me. So within the resource packet, this is kind of a list of everything that is within it. There is also a table of contents also within the resource packet. And once again, if you're not able to find something, you can email us. We did have some updates on our master plans that we just wanted to remind you of, and because these directly feed into that resource packet and also project eligibility. And so the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan adopted, Vision Zero Action Plan was adopted, 2019 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan was also adopted. And then the ITS master plan is underway. Once the ITS master plan is complete, we're probably going to sit down and take another look at our quantitative scoring, and maybe do a little bit of tweaks for next year's cycle. And then, of course, when the Transportation Resiliency Master Plan, which we're having our kickoff next week with that technical committee / task force, once that's completed, we'll also kind of tweak the project priorities methodology to fit that as well. So that brings us to well, I guess, do we have any questions at this point? Because I know I just threw a lot of information at you. All right, so that brings us to the qualitative scoring. And as I said, this is really where this group has the opportunity to speak their minds in regards to the ranking. And so basically what'll happen is municipalities will have the opportunity to say, you know, we would like to pursue qualitative scoring, and then they'll be able to present to this group at our May 20th meeting. And basically, they'll be given up to 5 minutes to explain why the project should receive a qualitative score. I want my project to receive a qualitative score is not a reasonable excuse. We're looking for, you know, how does this project affect the community at large? How does it impact our region? Why is it important? What special, unique thing about this project really justifies it pushing it forward? And then last year, this was our first year doing it. We did it by vote. I think it worked really well. So we'll probably do the same thing. So you can pursue a qualitative score on new projects and also projects that are already on the priority list. If you would like to pursue a qualitative score, please email me by May 10th so I can get you on the agenda. And I might ask you for a couple of details so then I have a slide that really helps kind of move it forward. All right, so what if I already have a project on the currently adopted list of project priorities? So your work's not done. We need you to do a couple things this year as well. Please review the list of project priorities to ensure all projects are still relevant and up to date. And cost estimates need to be reviewed yearly. So if you have a list on the project priorities, take a look. Let us know if the cost estimates are you know, correct or not correct. If there's a project on there that, you know, the limits need to be tweaked or something needs to be tweaked about it, or maybe there's a project on the list that no longer has public support or really isn't going to be implementable in the next 5 years. And so what we would do is we'd pull it off as a candidate project.
Okay, Sarah?
Yep.
All right, sorry to interrupt. It looks like Courtney, you have your hand raised. I don't know if it's pertinent to what Sarah's saying right at the moment, but go ahead.
It might have been qualitative. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. I was just wondering if we wanted to request a qualitative score for one that's already on the priority list, should we submit a whole nother application, or can we just let you know if there's any changes to the existing application?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to do a new application. Just send me an email and say, you know, I'd like to request a qualitative score on X, Y, and Z, and here's any changes to the application.
Okay. And I don't know when, but I have some questions on some other items that DOT should be doing over here. So whenever we get done, I just want to ask those questions when it becomes okay to do that. Okay.
Let's well, when we get to the end of the presentation, we can have kind of an open discussion forum.
Okay.
Sound good?
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you. Great question about qualitative scoring. Do we have any other questions? All right. So back to what if I already have a project on the currently adopted project priority list. So review your projects. Also take an opportunity to review the scoring matrix to ensure that the quantitative score is correct. We are humans over here, and we definitely can sometimes miss something or enter a number in wrong. Please contact staff if corrections are needed. And once again, inform Space Coast TPO staff if you would like to pursue a qualitative score by May 10th, 2021. All right, any questions?
Yeah, Sarah, there's one from Mark in the chat box. He's regarding State Road A1A sidewalk project from Volunteer Way to Galley. It's a state project. Does the city need to do anything to keep that project moving forward?
Georgiana, would you like to take this one?
Mark, I would just say, definitely, maybe make a comment in the work program public hearing comment website. Right now we do have the TPO funded some of the right of way, a couple of years of the right of way. I know the design, there was a public meeting that we had last year, that the DOT conducted last year. It's just the funding. And, you know, it shuffled when we adjusted our priorities. It was the #1 sidewalk project. But then when we changed and the priorities and made one list, then it all got shuffled around, which, you know, was kind of unfortunate. But still, the A1A project that got funded at the intersection in Cape Canaveral was not the #1 priority either. So it's a matter of getting funding and letting it known to DOT that it is really important that it kind of move forward. And of course, you know, they're looking for funding partnerships, and I realize that during the times that we're in, that's kind of hard to do. But if there's an opportunity for the TPO to help with funding, we certainly will. And that's how we've been able to get some of these projects to move forward to begin with, is we've started it and then hoping that DOT can pick it up and take it down the field. So I don't know if that helps or not.
Thank you, Georgiana. Any other questions at this time? All right, so steps to submitting a project and website walkthrough. So if you would like to submit a project, or if you're just looking for the project priorities page, basically what you do is you go to our website, spacecoasttpo.com, click on projects and studies, and it'll pop out drop down this little box. You'll click on project priorities, and that'll take you to a page that looks something like this. So then for actually submitting a project, first you'll scroll down to the website page, and you'll find this section. And so step 1, review. So please review the 2021 Space Coast TPO call for projects, directions, and information that was sent out earlier this month. So you all already should have it in your email, but you can also just visit the webpage. Step 2, complete. So you're going to want to complete the FDOT application. There is what you have to do, because it's a Word document, is you have to kind of right click and open in a new tab, and then it will download the Word document. And that looks something like this. And so to complete, you will need to be able to amply describe the scope of your project, the schedule, if, you know, everything was great with funding, and what would be the ideal schedule for implementation. Any and all estimates, the location and limits, and the relevancy. So why this project? Next, you will want to complete the project application, the Space Coast TPO project application. So there's one for Word if you prefer to use Word, and then there is a fillable PDF. And as mentioned before, the resource packet is available and basically really helps you with filling out the applications. If you have any issues with any of the applications or accessing anything, please just email me and I can send you the document directly. So what happens after you submit an application? So bringing back up the same graphic from earlier, basically what happens is we will evaluate and rank the projects. Then they will come back to the Transportation Subcommittee to review and discuss the qualitative scoring. We'll then take them to our governing board for adoption, submit it to FDOT. FDOT reviews the applications, vets and meets with the locals, and then we'll go through the project programming process along with them, develop the work program, and implementation is the ultimate goal. Something new, though, that's happening in our process is we will be holding an environmental stakeholder meeting on April 14, 2021. This was a recommendation that came from the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan. We held a similar meeting with them during the LRTP development. And basically the purpose was for when we held them with the LRTP, to review the LRTP projects. But what we're going to do is we're going to hold it for review of the list of project priorities. And basically we're trying to get an initial sweep of any potential environmental partnerships, projects, or issues. An example would be, the large discussion that we've had with 528. Is it possible that we could have potentially identified the stakeholders' interests earlier on? Or perhaps there's, an opportunity where there's a widening going in and, the natural resources has identified that corridor for new stormwater improvements that would help the lagoon. Or maybe there's a sidewalk going in and there's scrub jay issues there. Basically, we're trying to get ahead of the potential for partnerships, projects, and issues in regards to intermingling the environment and our transportation, with the ultimate goal to have a more resilient, sustainable, healthier transportation system and community. With that, does anyone have any questions? Alrighty. So next steps. Submit your completed applications by March 15th, 2021. Please inform Space Coast TPO staff if you'll be pursuing a qualitative score by May 10th, 2021, and then attend the Transportation Subcommittee meeting on May 20th. I will, of course, send out reminders for all of these dates and, get that meeting on our calendars and stay in touch with you throughout this whole process. So applications due, then we'll have the environmental meeting, the transportation subcommittee, approval of the draft priorities, and then what we'll do is we'll take that list and we'll present it at our annual open house, so the public will have an opportunity to make any kind of comments. Then we'll take it to our BPAC. The BPAC really only reviews the BPAC related projects, so our bicycle pedestrian trails projects. So, for example, while reviewing last year's projects, they made the recommendation to push NASA and Aurora, both those sidewalks forward, that those were their priorities. And so we were able to kind of take that, and obviously both of them were funded. So next, it goes to our TAC-CAC on July 6th, and then the board adoption on July 8th. So that's basically the whole process that we're going to go through over the next several months. So does anyone have any comments, concerns before we move on to the new procedure that we're going to be adopting? Right, so Laura, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. You can go to the next slide. So historically, here internally, staff does develop procedures periodically, especially for our major projects, so that there is a formal documented process that Federal Highway and DOT can see that we are following each year for each work product that we're producing that follows the needs and the requirements, both state and federally. They formally document what we're doing. They're less formal than policies, and typically our executive director does have the authority to approve procedures. What we have done this past year is we had two separate procedures, one for the development of the Transportation Improvement Program, which was PR 07-01, and we had a different one for Project Priorities 07-02. These are old. They were originally adopted back in 2006. And then we've done revisions as the FAST Act and some other things have taken place in 2012 and 2018. In order to streamline everything, and as you'll see in the slides that Sarah presented earlier in the process, we've combined them both into just one procedure, because you go through project priorities, they eventually will end up into the Transportation Improvement Program when funding is identified. But we have three sections. Next slide. The first one is the list of project priorities. It's updated to reflect the latest process that Sarah just went over and thoroughly each step. It also includes the outreach to environmental agencies that was new. So we've amended those into the procedure. The second part is a funding source direction. This section establishes the guidelines for DOT and the TPO to use when programming our projects with the various funding sources. This particular section has been formulated into a resolution. I'll go over that in further detail in a moment. That's going to be presented to the committees and to our board for consideration and approval. And the final section of the new procedure is the Transportation Improvement Program. It develops the processes for the adoption and annually submitting it to the DOT and getting them compliance with the work program. Next slide. So the project priorities, this is basically what came out of our long-range transportation plan, the general process, call for projects. The transportation subcommittee then meets, helps prioritize and rank them. We also are now reviewing these with our environmental partners, and then we submit a final approved priority list to the DOT. Are there any questions? There's nothing in the procedure that's different than what Sarah went over today. It's just documenting what we do on an annual basis for our records. Pretty straightforward. I'm looking at comments in the moment. We have a member who cannot see the slides. Oh, nope, never mind, she said. I guess she got it working. Okay, so if there's no questions on the procedure, I would like to go into the guidelines that we have developed for funding. Just go to the next slide. Okay, so these have been identified as we wanted to put something in a procedure that formalizes kind of how the TPO, what our roles are, and we understand working in coordination with the Florida Department of Transportation, what their roles are, and how they pursue funding our priorities for us. So this first slide here is pretty straightforward. It's just documenting what has always been done. It's the strategic intermodal system projects, which would be our I-95, State Road 528. You know, we continue to pursue funding with SIS revenues. So the largest revenues available, and those projects that are eligible obviously use those revenues first. Then fund major TPO projects with DDR, District Dedicated Revenue, DS and SA revenues. We also have called out formalizing projects eligible for the Transportation Alternative Funds, that those go through our Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee. They are also included in our overall project priority list, but those are pulled out a little bit differently because of the eligibility of those projects focus on bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Funding other minor projects with discretionary resources that don't adversely affect our TPO priorities. And then all projects, the last bullet there, should be considered for creative funding opportunities, such as public-private partnerships, the use of the SIGP and TRIP resources when they're available, in consultation with the DOT and the TPO when available. Next slide. So getting into the SU, which is really the one area that the MPO has authority to kind of guide what projects get funded with that. Formally, it's known as the Surface Transportation Block Grant, STBG, but we call it SU. The priorities and the procedure that we have and are recommending that the DOT is using our funds, and when we make recommendations, that we use TPO priority list off system first, that meaning off the state road system. As we all know, we have a very long list of off system projects that do not have the funding resources that other projects that have if they're on the state system. The TPO shall select projects in consultation with the state. We plan on identifying the projects in our list of project priorities that we would like DOT to consider when using our SU funds. And the big one here, which seems regularly on an annual basis at some point in the year, that we'll have unobligated or unanticipated leftover project balances, and the DOT will call us up and we work with them to figure out which projects that these SU funds should be put on. They're typically current year. And so we wanted to formalize the process, really how that should be done. So we're asking that DOT shall consult with the TPO executive director or designee prior to making any changes in the work program. We had a meeting back in August where we explained where this had kind of been done. The DOT, I understand, was probably under time constraints, but did take our SU and moved forward with trying to program some projects and then let us know about it after the fact. And then lastly, the executive director would have the authority to determine if the funding request needs to have board approval prior to granting permission to making change to the DOT to make changes within the work program. And as I mentioned, this particular section of the procedure, the funding guidelines, is formalized into a resolution that we plan on presenting to the TPO board and its committees in February for their consideration and approval. So this would be the moving forward. It's nothing different than what's been done in the past. It's just formalizing it so we're all on the same playing field and understand what the requirements are from each of the agencies. I don't know if there's another slide or not. No. Does anybody have any questions about that or concerns? And Georgiana, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that conversation.
No, I think you did a great job. You know, some MPOs have procedures. In fact, I think most of them regarding how their SU is to be spent. And we never really had a procedure. You know, we want to keep the flexibility. I mean, in the past, having flexibility gives us more options. And when you don't know how much money may be coming your way in current year, you need to have the flexibility, you know, and have different options of using the funding. Otherwise, you could get yourself in a bind and you may not be able to use it the way you want to use it. So I think that this just, as Laura said, kind of puts it down on paper that there's some expectations and you know, that of course we will continue to work with DOT and nothing has really changed, but now we have a formal policy that I think will protect us and will help DOT as we move forward in the future.
Okay, thank you. Sarah, you can go to the next slide. I think we were going to just seek endorsement from the Transportation Subcommittee to make sure everybody is understanding of what we're going to be asking our committees and boards to approve, and if there's any other final comments about it.
Yep. So do we want to have a formal motion and second, Laura, or can we just say?
I don't know if it necessarily needs to be formal, just as long as everybody is in agreement. I guess we could assume if we don't see anything or nobody unmutes themselves, we'll just assume that everybody is supportive of this action.
Yep.
Sarah and Laura, this is Devin. I will make a motion to formally accept it. I know you don't need one, but I'll do that anyway.
Thanks, Devin. Well, I guess since we have a motion anyways, do we have a second? We'll just do it.
Sarah, this is Courtney. I can second.
All right, we have a motion from Devin, second from Courtney. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, so we have formal endorsement of the project priorities and TIP procedure by our Transportation Subcommittee. Well, yep.
Just real quick, I don't think I mentioned it, but I do know that the resolution has a slight edit to it that I think might not have made it on here. One of the things that we were authorized many years ago, and it wasn't by a resolution, it was just a verbal by our board, was to finish what we've started. And that's the number one thing, that if money does fall out of another project that doesn't get spent, we will continue. Now we are going to have it documented in the resolution, though, that we will finish what's already started before we program it on any new projects. I just wanted to mention that. Sorry, after we approved it.
Yeah,
She tried to slip something in.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Laura, because there have been a handful of supplementals for Ellis that the county is doing for the design phase. So it's a perfect example where current year funding is used to supplement, you know, Ellis as funding falls out of the sky and becomes available. So that's very routine. You know, and all of the off-system projects is we want to help the locals as much as we can. So when projects are bid, They come in high. I mean, we want to try to for that not to happen, but we know that it happens. We want to try to help the locals with the additional SU funding that is already on the project to begin with as much as possible. So finish what you started. That has been the direction of our board for a long time, and we want to continue that.
And that also, that's really why we need those estimates, or one of the reasons that we need those estimates reviewed annually. And I should have mentioned this earlier when we were on that slide, is to make sure that we're not having overages on every single project every single year, because we've had quite a few this year. So, all right. So you guys, we are going to wrap up early. This is my last spiel. So just a real quick reminder of the next steps. Just, the applications are due March 15th. Environmental meeting on April 14th. Transportation Subcommittee, you guys will meet again May 20th. June 16th, our open house. June 28th, the BPAC. July 6th, the TAC-CAC. And July 8th, our governing board. So very busy next several months, or about 6 months. And if you would like to meet with us in regards to any of your projects that you're either submitting this year or plan to submit, or if they are already on the project priorities, please email me so that I can work with me, Laura, and Georgiana's schedule and your schedule to get a meeting on the books. Last year we met with quite a few of you, and of course we'd be happy to meet with you again. And also, if you have any questions while you're working through any of your applications or looking through the list of project priorities, I'm here to help in any way, shape, or form that you might need. So with that, I think we can adjourn.
Thank you all. Georgiana, you're muted if you're talking.
I'm so sorry. I thought Courtney had some questions that.
Oh, you are right. I apologize.
Okay. That's all right.
Sorry,
I was just going to call you guys later. But the only question I really had was with A1A and this, the study that DOT was supposed to be doing for traffic calming along A1A. I was wondering, where was that? That was one of their solutions, I guess, and they talked about looking at the whole street, and we were going to have a public meeting with all the people together. And I think after the signs went in and stuff like that for the crosswalks, it all just kind of went away. And I don't know where they are on that.
Sarah, do you want to kind of chime in?
Yeah.
We did have a meeting, Courtney,
yeah.
And I'll let you take it, Sarah.
So over the summer, I can't recall the exact date. All I can tell you is there was some sort of emergency COVID meeting that just happened to pop up on the same date after we had spent about 2 months working with FDOT for a meeting where all of the beachside municipalities were invited. And we had a very, 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 very low attendance. Pretty much Patrick Air Force Base, a citizen from Cocoa Beach, I believe someone from Cape Canaveral, and Melbourne Beach were the only ones that showed up. So we tried to work through the agenda as best we could and came up with some really good ideas. And it is pretty much in FDOT's court now, where I know that the staff that was really working on it has moved up to district, central office. And so I'm not really sure where that has left that meeting and that kind of process. So we should probably regroup with FDOT because it has been quite a few months.
But there was right, and it was just really kind of a workshop.
Yeah,
more than anything. It was not an official study. There has not been any sort of official study that's been done. I think DOT wanted to wrap their head around what is the vision for the corridor from all the different municipalities, and I'm not sure that they got what they needed, quite frankly, Courtney. I don't know. I think it's kind of stalled. And again, there was a lot going on during that time. Emergency COVID meeting, very low attendance. And there was also a lot of controversy going on as well with the RRFBs and everything that happened with the death of the child. And I think we need to talk about that some more, but I'm not sure where it's at. Is it enough? The question is what do the municipalities want the corridor to look like? Because I think DOT is waiting to hear from everyone. I mean, before they move forward with anything else.
That was like the ultimate goal of the workshop.
Right.
Was to hear from the municipalities. And so, they broke us out into smaller groups. Actually, Devin, I think, also was there. And, they broke us out into groups that were kind of north, central, south beaches, to work through kind of wanting to hear from the municipalities. What do you want to see along A1A? And, it's no one's fault that there was an emergency.
Oh, no.
Well, it's COVID's fault.
It's
COVID's fault.
The city managers that are normally like on the TPO stuff, like Mark and I wouldn't have been there, for that reason. But so would it be a good idea if, I don't mind working with Mark and Cocoa Beach and the other beachside cities to try to do a workshop with them. I mean, I just don't know who a DOT to schedule it with. If we get, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a workshop, if we just had a meeting and, I brought in the division that Satellite Beach has, we've already turned into DOT. And the only thing we're waiting on now is the west side sidewalk. But that seems to drop off. And then I think Mark, has put in his request for his area. I think Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral have all done that. So we just probably need to sit down and put it all together. But I think all of us are on the same wavelength as in, wet sidewalks on both sides of the road with bike lanes and medians where you need them and, crosswalks where you need them, stuff like that. So,
yeah,
I mean, I think that to me, it was kind of like more of a delay tactic, just to be honest. But I don't have a problem trying to put it back on their radar and working with other city managers to do that, if that's something you think we should do.
Let me email and find out who we should even contact at this point.
Yes,
I'm
on the call and I can intervene here.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, no problem. So Courtney, I think that's a question that we do need to look into. Brenda Young was leading that from the district's perspective. She was promoted to a central office safety engineer position around the same time of the workshop. And so I think maybe that's where, we had a change in management over there, and maybe that's where some things got lost. I know we did have a public hearing last week in Cocoa for the incoming crosswalks, and we definitely heard from most of the city commissioners and the city manager that they don't want them.
Cocoa Beach.
Cocoa Beach.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think that the secretary has mentioned to staff here that he wants to start a more broader conversation with the city about what they want the corridor to look like. So let me get an update for you on that, and then I'll work with Georgiana to try to figure out how we can best maybe come back to the table. I know the day of the workshop, there was an emergency Brevard County Commission meeting to address a mask ordinance. And therefore we kind of lost, we kind of lost the wind in our sails. So let me come back to the drawing board on that one for you. Let me talk to leadership and let's see how we can get that back on track. And I know the department is committed to it, and we have been continuing to monitor the areas in Satellite Beach and what the RFBs are, doing out there. So let me get an update for you all together and see how we can move forward.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thanks so much, Anna.
Appreciate that.
I see that Cliff has his hand up.
Good morning. I'll be brief. I just want to say, Sarah and Laura, good job this morning. Really appreciate the information, and particularly in this format. So you guys are getting good at this. Georgiana, the Ellis Road widening project, you've really been the voice of the project for the last couple of years. And from the airport's perspective, I want to thank you for that. You're absolutely right. Getting the stakeholder meeting together, that's what we need to do. You'll absolutely have the support of the airport in doing that. I do have one question related to the project. Since the interchange has opened, do we know if there's been any traffic studies or counts on Ellis Road? Just from my untrained eye, the reason I bring this up is, there's a big change out there, particularly in the afternoon. I mean, the interchange can back up all the way to Wickham at times. So, maybe that helps us a little bit emphasize the need going forward. In my mind, there's been a change, and maybe that's this is something we can talk about in the stakeholders meeting. But I did want to bring it up, and also thank you. So appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks. Laura from a timing perspective,
We did not, because the area was under construction. The south was counted in the fall prior to it being opening, but I will agree with you, Cliff. I was down there a week or two ago, and I was shocked on Ellis Road that it was backed up all the way to Wickham at evening rush hour.
Yeah.
I didn't think the traffic would move that quickly, but apparently they really like the interchange.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. The interchange is it's fabulous. It's great. It's just what happens certain times of the day on Ellis Road.
Yeah, being it's a local road, we are still under our contract. We're doing Central and Merritt Island right now. We can always send if necessary, just to get a thumb on what's happening out there, do a 24-hour count or something. That might be beneficial.
That would probably be great, Laura, if we could do that. Maybe we'll have that information as we figure out what our strategy is and we move forward. So Cliff, not to keep everyone, but who from the airport, you and who else needs to be at this meeting?
Probably Bill Johnson. He handles our governmental affairs, and but if obviously you send it to me, I'll make sure it gets out.
Sounds good. It's being coordinated as we speak. I need to send a list of names, and the county is going to go ahead and set it up, but we'll be basically hosting it.
We have a bigger voice together, so it's a great idea. Looking forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have any other open discussion items or any other things that anyone wants to bring up? Questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, with that, then I will actually adjourn. I apologize, Courtney, again for, I just was in the role of doing the presentation. So
no, that's fine. You guys did a great job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Well, everyone have a wonderful rest of your week.
Sarah,
Thank
Laura,
you.
Shannon, you all did a great job.
Thank you, Devin.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You guys have a good one.